Now, if you haven't paid attention to the date, we are coming up on 6/6/26. We're going to read some religious horror. This idea came to me from the ever so lovely Uncanny Collective on Instagram, who, a few months ago at this point, I think, March, Jesus, posted a collection of religious horror and instantly sparked this idea in mind. So, I looked up the books, figured out which ones were most interesting to me, but I read The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby, and The Unworthy, I want to read, I wasn't into the flesh other book that she wrote, so in time. But one of the ones that did draw me in was his Black Tongue. It's nice and dark outside. I got my devil music shirt on. Let's dig into some medieval horror. Oh, I didn't say, his Black Tongue is by Mitchell Luthi, I think is how you say it. So let's get into this, and I'll talk to you after I'm hopefully not too cold after being outside for a while. So one of these days, 2 lessons I need to learn. I gotta tell you what the fuck the book is about before I dive into them. For 2, I need to know what the book is about and not being so scared about reading the blurb and that it's gonna spoil the book. Because at the very bottom, it says, includes the Bonefields novella and the short stories, these, and these. I didn't know this was a short story collection. I'm so dumb. I'm so fucking stupid. Goodness gracious. So I read the first story. I assume this follows all the same characters of Remy and Pierre? I guess not, actually. Because I'm not seeing their names again. So I guess it just takes place in the same, setting. Sure. So the first story is about Remy and Pierre come to this end fair. The plague hasn't touched it, and they're kind of like, that's weird, and they figure out why. Putting aside that it was going at a breakneck speed, and I was confused by that, they were coming to some conclusions, so this person is the witch, and I was like, I guess, sure, I believe you, I just don't know why you have settled on that. There's this trope I've come across a couple of times. The Strange series does it, specifically, or especially with Strange Buildings, in that the sidekick knows more than the main person, and so it's kind of why is the sidekick the sidekick? And I feel like this story was doing that with Remy, and that, she may not explicitly be the sidekick, but she's obviously not the one in charge, even though it feels like she knows more and does more than Pierre. Oh, the other thing is that tandem reads, love tandem reads. The audiobook is also a full cast. Quite expansive with the audio and the dramatization, if you're into that. Okie dokie. So I read the second story called The Bonefields, and this one was more Viking horror than anything, with the religious undertones. What made it work was, or I guess what made it religion, was that it introduces this idea that religions all believe that the same thing is evil. We just have different names for it. For example, these Vikings, they have Christian slaves, and so they come across this evil that they refer to as the world serpent, the Midgar serpent, but they see that the Christians call it a different name, and they're like, it's the same thing, it's just a different name, and they see it as a different origin story. And I love that. That's something I really subscribe to. Love the shit out of that. I really enjoyed this story. Again, there's a lot of high octane action towards the end, but it kept me on. I was into it. I impulsively want to say that it kind of ended a little abrupt. It doesn't feel like it ends purposefully, but that's a lie. This one ended at a good point. I just wish it didn't. I just wanted to continue. I really enjoyed these characters. I'm getting a pretty good impression so far. I do have a couple of notes on the writing, though. For one, the worlds that this takes place in, it does not hold your hand in explaining it. The Norse mythology, the characters know it. You're just expected to know it. So that makes it a little difficult to follow. I'm kind of letting it, like, wash over me the first half, and this first story did that as well. Full cast audiobooks kind of turn me off. And for me, it's because I want to listen to an audiobook. I don't want to listen to a podcast. That's just a personal preference, and I know that. But part of the reason why full casts give me such trepidation is because I often feel like the audio takes precedence over accuracy to what's being read, and this does that a lot. First story didn't do it often enough for me to complain, but this second one, holy shit. Like, the text says, I, Gowan said, so it is. But the audiobook says, I, so it is. And it's like, but that's not what the book says. But it does, so it does it with those, but also with, like, he looked over his shoulder, so it is. But the audiobook just says, so it is. And I'm like, but this is important. This stage direction is still equally as important. You're not matching the author's writing style. That's the main thing, is that you're not being faithful to how the author writes. The other thing is that these paragraphs are so short and staccatoed that it is a little difficult to get a flow going because it's constantly breaking itself up. Many paragraphs are like 2 sentences long, maybe 3. And again, all these things I'm saying, very minor, personal preferences. You may not give a shit about it. For me, it breaks up a lot of the flow, and the breaks don't entirely make sense a lot of the time to me. So just those little oddities with, and the table of contents, the numbers on the table of contents are not accurate. It says the bone field starts on page 100. It doesn't. It starts on page 102. Like, the breeding ground is 120, when in reality it is 124. Oh, I didn't even say, I did read the Knights of the non-Euclidean table. It wasn't for me. It was significantly more Arthurian. Is that the word? It's like Excalibur. That's what that's that whole era. The second half starts with the breeding ground, which is about these 2 brothers looking for a place of respite from the war. And I mean, very similarly to the first story, things are not what they seem. It felt as if the titular His Black Tongue and the breeding ground were written with the same prompt of travelers come across the town and find out they have hidden secrets. I think if it was a part of a different short story collection, or if I just read it completely separate from His Black Tongue, I might have liked it a lot more. It's just instead of witches, it was pagans. And then the last 2 stories are weird because they're sci-fi. I mean, for one, not religious, so I'm not going to go into them. But for 2, not medieval. They were sci-fi. So I don't know why they were here. Another weird thing is that the audiobook that I'm tandem reading with don't have these 2 short stories. It has a completely separate Cthulhu versus Kaiju short story. So this is weird. And not in a good way. It's just fucking bizarre. Also, the blurb is, again, only relevant to the first story. So I'm so confused by this whole thing. So the second to last story is Necropolis, and I strongly disliked it. It was very, very wordy. So it just wasn't fun in the slightest to read. On a positive note, I will say this felt fairly well edited, at the very least, which I do want to highlight that, because since it is so indie published, that's usually not the case. Because it's usually like, shout out to my husband for editing this, and it's like, you should fire your husband. Everything else is just so weird to make this as a collection. That was his black tongue. I did just get The Rotting Room through Libby. Also, to not let the audiobook edition of Kaiju vs. Cthulhu go to waste, I will be including this in my short story reading vlog and shorts/reels, so you can find it there. Okay, so I read the first 8 chapters. So Rafaela has come to a new abbey because in her old one, sisters were murdering in the name of God. She seems to be tormented a little bit over the fact that she didn't say anything. And now she's in a new abbey working in the Chamber of Divine Decomposition, which is an awful name, but fantastic. And this is where they take the dead bodies. I was taken aback that this isn't dual POV. I just wasn't expecting it. So it's Rafaela, Sister Rafaela, and Father Bruno. But we get the perspective of Bruno, and he immediately is like, whoa, who's this new nun? She's kind of cute. And Rafaela is like, whoa, the priest is kind of cute. And it's not subtle at all. The book really throws you into the fact that they're into each other. So cool. It's a little much, to be honest, like immediately. And it kind of makes me want to think that this priest is not very experienced. Like, I want to say he's a new priest, because his opinion about the abbey is also, I don't know, shitty. He's like, all these nuns smell like death and they're gross and I don't want to be here, but I have to, and oh, there's a new girl. Like, he sounds like this is his first gig. The inciting incident seems that a nun comes to the doors and she's kind of sus and she's got a bad cough and she's casting a whole lot of doubt onto Rafaela's faith, or just God in general. It's like, obviously this is not a sister. She may be claiming to be. She may walk, talk, and but she doesn't talk like a sister. So we're just taking her word for it. All these characters feel so stupid. Because I guess Rafaela also has this issue where she doesn't trust herself. It just kind of keeps hammering that home. And for some reason, I don't feel like I'm gonna believe that fact. That, like, I am equally not supposed to trust her. Because everything that Rafaela is like, maybe I'm wrong, I'm pretty inclined to assume she's obviously right. I don't know. 8 chapters in, I'm not spurring a whole lot of confidence in me, I gotta say. So, fantastic. Talk to you tomorrow. Okay, so here are my 2 biggest issues. Also, hi, I'm halfway. Here are my issues thus far. Good horror relies on suspense, right? I feel like that's kind of a universally agreed upon aspect of horror, is that you expect the spooks, and it is either like held from you or it takes you by surprise. Despite the main character telling you it's spooky and her being scared, like, the same thing that she's getting scared by happens like every chance possible that it's not scary. It's also just like, it's constantly telling you what to be scared of and that it's gonna happen and you better be ready, and then it happens. Oh no! Like, it's a bad way to rate horror because it's not scary. Also, I hate Father Bruno. My guy is like doing the confessional and he's like, I didn't know Rafaela was next, but my body did. And it's like, ew. And he's talking about getting turned on about her talking, like, confessing these traumatic moments. And he's just like, oh my god. It's so weird. It's very weird and off-putting. I don't know if it's trying to be like, she's new, so that's what's hot? Or she's like the only one that's not deformed. It seems like a lot of the nuns here are kind of messed up in a certain way. At least he's said that they all kind of smell like death. And so he's like, oh my god, I hope that disgusting smell doesn't get on her. Is it just because she doesn't smell like death? It's so obnoxious. That's the only way I can forgive it, is if there was a reason. If it's because she's new, and there's never new nuns, so now he's like, ooh, a new girl. No. He just comes off so weird and gross. Anyways, I don't really agree with the world that this book has created. Or I don't agree with it. I don't find it believable at all. Bruno's extremely unrealistic. Raffaella at least has more sympathy because she's, I guess, a little more fleshed out and kind of ignorant to everything. But that's fine. She's just stupid and he's just lustful. And like, that's the whole book. Can you tell I'm not liking it? I'm really, really not liking it. I might blitz through this today just so I can get it done. And just like that, the rotting room has been defeated. I have nothing else to say that I didn't already say in the halfway mark. What happens? Nothing. She continues to not believe herself until she does, and the book is over. Also, Bruno truly did not need to be here. He adds nothing to this story, except for, like, the very end, I guess. Having his perspective gives you some, like, insight to the decision he makes. But there were other ways to do that than create a whole other POV for him. He also only has, like, 6 chapters or something. He's barely here. And when he is, he's like, damn, Raffaella. I also do love that, because he doesn't stop lusting after her, Raffaella gives not a single shit about him. And I do appreciate that. I mean, he has other aspects to him. Most of his chapters are his backstory. But damn, do I not care. In the present, all he's doing is lusting, and the backstory, don't worry, the backstory doesn't justify his lusting. It just justifies his final decision. And even then, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter what his fucking choice is. Look, usually, is that all I have to say? Yeah, I guess. Look, if you want to read this, come the, like, I mean, chapter 8 was, I feel like, a good stopping point. Yeah, chapter 8, if you want to read this and read up to chapter 8 and are like, should I DNF this? Like, does it get better? Kind of thing. You get into that headspace. If you're not into it by then, I don't think you will be. Usually if I give a book a 1 star, it's because I'm mad at it. And I'm not really, like, mad at this. I don't know what redeeming qualities this book had. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really like anything about it. Yeah. There's a Rotting Room, 1 star. Hold on. I have The Monk by Matthew Lewis. And I've already read the intro. So this is from 1794? 1796. So the intro, to introduce what the hell I was about to read, felt extremely necessary to give me a better idea of the world when this was written. The intro introduced me to the term irreligious. Irreligious is the absence of religion, whereas anti-religious obviously is against it. This is more irreligious, and the fact that people, as in like the authority, wanted to make sure that people didn't go into this thinking it was a religious book. This is about, I believe, a monk that kind of strays from God, and he breaks his vows with, like, sexual obsession and then murder. Because the church was so aggressive about people reading this, the text made sure to point out the fact that it wasn't the people of 1790s that were so conservative. It was the church. The people actually loved the book, so much so that critics agreed, whether, you liked it or not, Lewis was a genius in what he was doing with this. And then it goes on to explain why this was so groundbreaking. Bodies were used to give a lot of insight to character, but in The Monk, people's bodies betray them. So this is split up in 3 volumes, and they're all basically like a third of the book. So I'll read the first volume and get back to you on how we're doing. I'm very nervous because I think this is going to be like the oldest book I've read outside of high school when he had to read like the Odyssey and shit. So I'm scared but excited. I finished volume 1 and I'm so very pleasantly surprised by how much I'm enjoying this for such an old classic. I think like most classics especially, it takes a little bit to get into and understand like what's happening and who these people are and what the social mores are. But once I did, it was enjoyable. Antonia and her mother are new in town and they go to this church, which is apparently just popping the fuck off. And it's because the priest is just so charming and everyone loves him. So everyone comes to see this guy talk, and this guy being Father Bruno. And while they're waiting for the priest, they're chatting up with these other 2 guys, one of which is Lorenzo, which is basically the other main character, the other half of the story. Like, I kind of want to say was common in comedy plays. This was turned into a play. Also, like, everyone falling in love with the wrong person. I can see that it's starting to brew. Like, I want to say it feels very Shakespearean, but that's also probably just because that's my point of reference for these classic comedies. So that's kind of our introduction to Antonia. Oh, I said Bruno, didn't I? Wasn't that the rotting tongue guy? I did. I said Bruno. It's not Bruno, it's Father Ambrosio. So Antonia and Ambrosio. There's also an Agnes. A lot of A's. Ambrosio is our monk, and he is so interesting. It comes up a couple of times where people are kind of questioning how he can relate to people if he never sins, because like they have all these like lustful and like deceptive feelings, whereas theoretically as a saint and as a priest he doesn't. He's more under control with his sinful thoughts and ignoring them. So he's kind of dealing with that, and he's like, oh yeah, I mean, I do relate to these people, I do love them, but I guess I don't actually know what it feels like. And then immediately in walks his boyish assistant, and he's like, love this guy like a father. He's kind of probably really cute, and I miss him when he leaves. Wait, don't think that way. And that's like, wow. So there is a really great sense of humor in this. Rosario is the name of the assistant boy. But later on, Rosario and Ambrosio are talking in the garden, and it's not going well. And so when he's leaving, Ambrosio is bit by a snake, a serpent, even, you may say. And it's like, oh wow, geez, religious imagery. And it's I'm really enjoying it. It is so, not comical, but just like, I love how he's written. I love his thoughts. The last chapter is not as fun. It's a drag, because you're back to following Lorenzo and Don Raymond's and Antonia's story. And they're not really, well, I don't know. I think they're kind of more like a subplot to the monk's whole journey. We'll see about that. I just don't really care. I think this counts as horror in a very classic sense, and a very religious sense. I do kind of agree with the, the introduction, describing this as irreligious, because nothing in this book has to do with religion outside of just kind of using the titles and settings and like, using it as inspiration. I think religion in like a lot of modern horror is used, right? It's kind of just there as a prop and setting. And that's what this did. This priest, this monk, man, oh my god. But outside of that, with like Agnes and Lorenzo, everything with Lorenzo was like, shut up. All the women in this book, well, that's a lie, not all of them, but a lot of the women in this book, like, just so much sympathy for. Absolutely ridiculous. How awful I feel for them, because like these the harassment, to put it gently. I mean, for one, it was described very mildly for the most part. A lot of books now go in like unnecessary detail. So that was pleasant that it's not hinted at per se, but it's just not glorified, I guess. But everything has these women blaming themselves for the fact that it was done onto them, including themselves. And it's, oh my god, it's so like honest and vulnerable, and these poor women, like, they agree if this hadn't been done, then my life wouldn't be over. But it was, and I just have to accept that I'm gonna die now. And it's like, what? Oh god. Yeah, I was saying that it's horror in a very classic sense, where there's a lot of death and the devil. That being said, though, this is not for someone, I think, who is not used to classics. And I don't say that as someone who reads a ton of classics. If you're not used to the meandering text and thoughts of classic books, where you read 50 pages, you read an entire chapter, and you're like, why did I have to read this? This could have been a paragraph. If you're not used to that, and you can't appreciate that, then I would not say this is for you. But otherwise, I mean, I loved the corruption of this poor man, and his change of character throughout the book from the beginning to end is so outrageous, and like that there's still some of it still kind of there in him at the end, really fighting for his faith. Yeah, I'm so glad I read this. I think I've settled on a 3.5 for this, because, as I said, you gotta be able to appreciate the meandering, and I can only do so much appreciation. So in a mild attempt to hopefully keep this vlog, I don't know, more of a chance. I don't feel like I've loved anything that I've read so far. I started The Starving Saints. I couldn't get the physical book. I mean, that's, even for the ebook, there's a long wait at the library, so that wasn't gonna happen. I'm like a fourth of the way through. I'm not loving it. It's not bad. It's just a little like, sure, cool. I'm on this ride, I guess. The characters are, I'm struggling a tiny bit to tell the characters apart. They just all kind of have a very similar voice to one another. One's just more aggressive than the others. The Starving Saints is about a town. As you may guess, they are starving, and they go to any means necessary, the occult, to hopefully survive and not starve to death. So that's where that is. I'm a fourth of the way through. I have nothing to say, so I'll probably check in when I finish it. So I want to give a quick shout out to the religious horror I've read in the past. They're the classics, obviously, like The Exorcist and Rosemary's Babies. There's only one baby. And they were classics for a reason. Personally, I liked Rosemary's Baby a lot more than The Exorcist. Rosemary's Baby is definitely a more feminist horror, whereas I feel like people like to dissect The Exorcist, in my opinion, more than it really needs. It's a great story as is. Our Share of Night has cult religion, but I understand it's marketed as a horror, and there are some like horrific scenes, but horror is far more of a subgenre in that book. I would not go into it looking for the horrors and the spooks, because you're going to be dragging ass through it. This book has a very, very high DNF rate on Storygraph, and I think it's because people go into it thinking it's going to be horrifying, and for the most part, it's really not. Everything the Darkness Eats, I talked about earlier this year on this channel. I very strongly disliked it, but there are Eric the Rocker fans out there, and if you are one of them, then you might like this, because for being religious horror, it satisfies that very, very well. Probably my favorite is The Possession of Alba Diaz. Similarly, I would say To Everything the Darkness Eats is quintessential religious horror, because it plays on and plays with these characters' faith and what devotion can do to someone, no matter where that devotion is put. So yeah, those are some of my favorites. Those are some religious horror that I would suggest you read. I finished The Starving Saints a little earlier today. It was very okay. I continued through most of the book to struggle to like hear the different voices these characters had, because they didn't really. But like every character in the book sounded very similar. It's an aggressive knight and then two other characters that blend together so much. The aggressive knight only kind of stands out because she's aggressive. And this is definitely a 2 for me. I think because this was not inherently bad, but it was definitely not like anything I'd read. I saw a lot of people comparing it to Gideon of the Ninth afterwards, and I DNF'd that book pretty quick, but I could see it. Also, The Starving Saints felt far more fantasy than it did medieval. It felt very fantastical. I don't know, maybe that's just the writing style. Genuinely, it felt as if it read like a horror romantasy, and with all of the like very aggressive longing and horniness of these characters, it felt more like what I would assume romantasy sounds like. Hey man, thanks for watching. I have learned though that medieval horror feels very like I'm fucking into it right now. For as much as I desperately need a break for reading about nuns and abbeys and saints, oh my, I have found and am in the process of collecting from the library some medieval horror that I'm gonna try out. So thanks for watching through this mess of a vlog. I hope some of these stories, some of these books sounded interesting to you, and if they didn't, I hope I was able to at least satisfy the interest you may have had, enough to let you know that they are not for you. So please like the video if you liked it, and consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time. A Tinkerbell fucking ching. Okay.